Looter shooters aren't everyone's cup of tea, but if you're a fan like I am, there's a good chance you've played most of them. They can be somewhat complicated games with a lot of perks and systems involved, but that's often the charm of them. I've played nearly every looter shooter I can get my hands on, and they're totally my jam. Relic Hunters Legend is the newest one I've gotten my hands on, and while it may not push the genre into new territory, it does some things really well, while also having some curious design choices that I think a lot of people will find isn't worth the effort. Let's talk about it. First off, you're greeted with Relic Hunters' story, and it's okay. I didn't find it super interesting, but I also didn't find it bad or annoying either. It just wasn't really my thing, I suppose. It does have a lot of dialogue though, and you'll spend quite a bit of time sifting through text boxes between quests. On the plus side of that though, the skip button does not mess around. You press that skip button and it skips everything. One small black screen later and you'll find yourself back in the action in no time. This was great, and I think a lot of people will get good use out of it if the story doesn't catch their attention. I didn't get this game for the story though, so how does the looter shooter aspects hold up? Gameplay is a top-down twin-sticks shooter style with a handful of abilities thrown into the mix for good measure. Weapons are impactful and animations are bouncy and cartoonish. The game both plays and looks good, and the moment-to-moment gameplay is fun and stays somewhat fresh with the different characters and gear you can equip. There are currently 5 characters and they're all pretty fun. I definitely had some favorites and stuck to those mostly, but they're all unique and provide different playstyles from one another. Gear also plays a big part in how your character shapes up. It's split into tiers and colored rarities. Tiers determine the level of the item, and as you level up and push your gear score higher, you'll find higher tiers of gear providing more attributes and further boosting your gear score. Gear score plays a huge part in what you can and can't do. But the way you actually increase your gear score is kinda odd. You get a set of gear, then instead of replacing items as you find better ones, you instead invest currency and materials into the ones that you have, until you max them out and find a new set at the next tier. At first this seems nice, as it doesn't take too much to level up your gear, and once you have invested into a piece, you can very easily and cheaply move that enhancement onto another piece if you find something better or more rare. The problem is that if you want to say try out a different weapon, you'll have to keep moving that enhancement back and forth every time you want to swap something. This isn't a big problem early on in a tier when the missions only require 1 or 2 enhancements, but when the game starts demanding your gear to be 8, 9, 10 enhancement levels, it really starts to limit your options or require a lot of menu navigating to get set up. Other than gear score though, higher gear rarities have more attributes, with legendary and set items having unique perks. These perks are all pretty nice. It doesn't take much to get a couple of pieces that work really well together, like having a minigun that auto reloads when you take damage, or being able to spam abilities by reducing cooldowns. And of course the name Relic Hunters wouldn't make much sense if you couldn't hunt down some relics too, right? I didn't manage to get any in my playtime. A quick Google search tells me that they require parts to be put together, with most of the parts being drops from bosses, Warframe style. They all have very powerful, potentially build-defining effects, but unfortunately I could only ever window shop them. That's really the main draw of the game, the looting and the shooting. And for players like me and many others who love this genre, the game is pretty good. Nothing we haven't seen before, but still fun and worth playing. At the same time though, there are some pitfalls that the looter shooter genre has that Relic Hunters falls into. The game is incredibly grindy. From the first couple of hours, you're already grinding gear score and achievements to get better loot and skills. The game locks missions, gear, and even its own level cap behind these milestones. They're fun to complete for a while, but after some time I honestly just wanted the game to quit tugging me around and just let me play. Some milestones want you to go here and collect this, then others want you to complete a quest that takes place on the complete other side of the map, then back to grinding XP, finding equipment, and then reaching a certain rebel rank, which means going through and playing other characters and completing other achievements. The game really makes you jump through some hoops, and while it's not always making you do boring tasks, it still requires a level of dedication to even find what you're supposed to be doing. It's anything but a straightforward game. Look, I'm making it sound like I don't like this game, but I do. I really, really do. It just has some design choices that made me wonder if the juice was worth the squeeze. It is in early access though, and while I don't think we'll see big revamps to the game's systems, some of the edges could get rounded off and be made a bit more approachable and easy to get into. That doesn't mean that the game is poorly designed everywhere though. There are some features here that really show off the smart fixes to some of the looter shooter's biggest problems. They seem small, but the more you play, the more these features really seem invaluable. First off, there's a mass dismantle and loot filter system. This is huge. Mass dismantle means you can effectively eliminate most inventory management with a single button, and I found myself spending most of my time actually playing the game rather than breaking down useless loot constantly. One final feature that I just have to mention is the skill trees. Each character has 3 trees that go down, with the final perk being a very powerful capstone skill. Usually in these games, in order to get the better skills, you have to invest in the tree that the skill is in. And that's still the case, but what's different here is that when you invest in one tree, the other trees also get a portion of that progress. What this means is that when you finally get that capstone you're after, you're already halfway through the other trees, meaning you don't have to take the lesser skills that you may or may not want to use. I love this. This is an incredibly smart way to make each skill point that much more exciting, as you're able to invest in only what you want, rather than throwing points at a tree just to get to something further down. Relic Hunters may be more complicated than it needs to be. It may demand a level of grind that most people won't like, and its gearing system may hold back a lot of the fun of experimenting with different equipment. But there's a great game under all these issues. I don't think the issues are enough to write the game off. There's an undeniable gem in the rough here, and it won't take much to refine it. If you're looking for a game with good action combat and good loot, and don't mind spending the time to learn the systems, look no further. But if you're after a more straightforward experience, I would say you're probably better off elsewhere.